Emma Carter stepped out of her car and adjusted her blazer, taking in the office building before her. The glass-fronted structure reflected the mid-morning sun, sharp and intimidating, almost as if it were testing her resolve. She inhaled deeply, savoring the crisp Virginia air, before stepping onto the pavement and walking toward the revolving doors. It was her first day at a new job, and although she had faced challenges before, none felt quite like this. This was civilian life, or at least the semblance of it. Unlike the mission she had survived as a Navy SEAL, this battlefield was subtler, psychological, and unpredictable. Inside the lobby, she was met with a murmur of whispers. People glanced at her, and Emma noticed the quick, calculating way they sized her up. She smiled politely, keeping her posture relaxed yet confident. Her eyes swept the room. The receptionist, busy typing away, didn't look up. Two men in business suits exchanged brief, suspicious looks, and in the corner a group of younger employees lounged casually, laughing and nudging one another. One of them, a tall man with a cocky grin, caught her gaze. Tyler. He tilted his head, studying her, as if measuring her for some unseen test. Emma didn't flinch. She simply nodded, letting her calm demeanor communicate more than words could. As she waited for orientation to begin, her mind wandered briefly, not in nervousness but in assessment. She noticed the layout: two exits, a security desk near the main hallway, and cameras she had learned to ignore but still cataloged in her peripheral vision. Her eyes flicked to the coworkers again. She could read their micro-expressions, subtle hints of character, fear, and bravado. Tyler's group exuded overconfidence, which Emma noted. Years of elite training had taught her that arrogance is often a shield for weakness. She filed that observation away mentally. The human resources manager, a cheerful woman named Linda, called Emma over. "Emma, welcome. We're excited to have you here. Your office is on the second floor. Orientation starts in 10 minutes. I hope you're ready." Emma smiled and nodded, following Linda toward the elevator. She noticed how easily people assumed she was just another timid newcomer, an easy target for office politics. A small, knowing smile touched her lips. They had no idea. As the elevator doors closed, Emma's thoughts briefly returned to her past life. Few people outside the military could imagine what it was like. Intense missions in unpredictable environments, split-second decisions that could mean life or death, the necessity of calm focus under extreme stress. That training didn't vanish when she left the SEALs. It had become part of her DNA. Every movement, every glance, every thought had an underlying layer of preparation and strategy. And now, in this seemingly mundane office environment, those instincts were quietly at work. Her office was compact but functional, with a sleek desk, a computer, and a view overlooking the parking lot. She set down her bag and organized her belongings with a calm precision that seemed ordinary to anyone watching. But for Emma, it was ritualistic, a way to center herself before engaging with the unpredictable dynamics of the office. She glanced at the door and saw Tyler leaning casually against a wall, smirking at her through the glass partition. Emma raised an eyebrow slightly, silently acknowledging the challenge without saying a word. The first hour passed in orientation, with HR introducing company policies, team structures, and basic workflow expectations. Emma absorbed every detail with deliberate focus. She noticed how employees interacted, the subtle hierarchies, who deferred to whom, who tried to dominate conversation. Tyler whispered to his friends at the back, throwing occasional glances her way. Emma's expression remained calm, polite, but her mind cataloged everything. By the time orientation ended, she knew more about this office than many had realized in weeks. Lunch hour arrived and the cafeteria buzzed with chatter. Tyler and his group were seated together, clearly in their element. He leaned back, laughing too loudly, clearly expecting to see Emma react when he called out a casual jab. "Hey, new girl, where'd you learn to carry yourself like that? Military school?" Emma's lips curved into a slight smile as she walked past, ignoring him. She chose her words carefully when she replied softly but firmly, "No, just experience." That alone gave the group pause. They had expected flinching or nervous laughter, not quiet, measured confidence. Emma's first encounter outside orientation ended without confrontation, but the ripple effect was immediate. Tyler's expression flickered between curiosity and irritation. His friends whispered, and Emma could see the gears turning in their minds. They were trying to understand her, to find a weakness. And for the first time that day, Emma allowed herself a small thought. This wasn't going to be simple, but it would be interesting. By late afternoon, Emma had settled into her desk, checked her emails, and introduced herself politely to nearby coworkers. Some smiled warmly, others observed cautiously. Tyler and his group lingered nearby, still testing boundaries, but Emma's serene composure made it clear she wasn't an easy target. She made a mental note: patience would be key. No one needed to know the full extent of her skills, yet. The day ended with Emma leaving the building quietly, walking to her car with a sense of controlled purpose. As she drove home, the sun casting long shadows across the road, Emma reflected on her first day. The office was a battlefield of social dynamics, subtle power plays, and underestimated strength. She smiled faintly, thinking about the challenges to come. The truth was simple: Tyler and his group had picked the wrong girl to test. Behind her calm exterior was a lifetime of rigorous training, discipline, and experience that would ensure she not only survived the office politics, but thrived in a way no one anticipated. And so Emma Carter returned home, ready to face day two, fully aware that the quietest person in the room often carried the greatest strength, and that her new chapter had only just begun. The next morning, Emma arrived earlier than usual, her calm steps echoing across the office floor. The quiet click of her shoes against the polished tiles went almost unnoticed by most, but not by Tyler and his friends. From across the room he watched her, arms crossed, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Looks like the new girl actually showed up on time," he muttered to his companions, loud enough for her to hear. Emma didn't respond. She simply glanced up, offered a polite smile, and continued organizing her desk with precision. Every detail mattered. Her movements were deliberate, her demeanor unshakable. By mid-morning, the subtle office battles began. Tyler's group whispered jokes just loud enough to catch her attention, trying to provoke any hint of irritation. "Careful, new girl," Tyler said, mockingly loud. "Don't trip over your own shoelaces." His friends snickered. Emma looked up briefly, calm and measured, letting their words hang in the air. She didn't respond with anger. Instead, she responded with observation. Every laugh, every glance, every micro-expression was noted. In her mind, this wasn't bullying. It was data, a way to understand her opponents and anticipate their moves. During a team meeting, Tyler escalated further. As the project manager discussed new deadlines, he leaned back in his chair and whispered loudly, "Maybe the newbie should handle the easy stuff, like filing." A few coworkers stifled laughs, but Emma met his gaze steadily. "I handle challenges efficiently," she said softly, yet firmly, her tone carrying an unmistakable authority. The room fell quiet. Tyler's smirk faltered for a split second. He wasn't used to confrontation that didn't involve fear or submission. Emma's calm defiance left him unsure how to proceed. After the meeting, the group lingered near the coffee machine. Tyler tossed a crumpled paper cup near Emma's feet, expecting a startled reaction. Instead, Emma bent down, picked it up, and placed it neatly in the trash, her movements fluid and precise. Her eyes never left him. "Accidents happen," she said quietly, almost conversationally. Tyler blinked, thrown off. His friends whispered among themselves, astonished at her composure. She had done nothing overtly aggressive, yet her presence alone commanded respect, or at least hesitation. Emma's subtle dominance was more powerful than confrontation. During lunch, Emma chose a corner table, keeping her back to the wall, her eyes scanning the room with the quiet vigilance ingrained by her SEAL training. Tyler and his group followed, sitting a few tables away, trying to watch her reactions. "Why doesn't she talk?" one whispered. "Scared?" Tyler asked. Emma's expression remained neutral, betraying nothing. They tried jokes, gestures, and whispered comments, yet Emma remained calm, observant, and unflappable. Each attempt to provoke her only confirmed one thing: they had underestimated her entirely. Later in the afternoon, an incident in the break room tested her patience further. Tyler leaned over the counter, spilling a drink near her workstation deliberately. "Oops, was that yours?" he said mockingly. Emma didn't flinch. Instead, she calmly grabbed a towel, wiped the spill, and placed the cup on a tray. "Thank you for noticing," she replied smoothly. Her words were polite but carried an unmistakable undercurrent of controlled authority. Tyler's friends froze for a moment. No one had ever responded this way. Emma's discipline and composure were magnetic and intimidating at once. By the end of the day, whispers of Emma's mysterious calm had spread. Several coworkers quietly approached her, curious. "Are you military or something?" one asked, unable to hide her curiosity. Emma smiled faintly, replying something like that without elaborating. She didn't need to boast. Her presence and controlled reactions spoke louder than words. Tyler, however, was still planning his next move, convinced that the right provocation would finally crack her composure. He had no idea that she had faced life-and-death situations far more dangerous than a spilled coffee or a hallway shove. Emma left the office with the same calm determination she had shown all day. She reflected on the small battles she had navigated, the subtle provocations, and the careful observations she had made. To an outsider, it might have seemed like a simple first day, but to her, it was the opening skirmish in a much larger game. She understood people, how they think, how they react under pressure, and where their weaknesses lie. Tyler and his group had been testing her, but Emma had already begun her counter-strategy: patience, awareness, and quiet control. That evening, as she sat on her balcony overlooking the quiet streets, Emma ran mental drills she had learned in the SEALs, visualizing scenarios, analyzing reactions, and planning contingencies. She didn't need to retaliate immediately. Real power, she knew, was about timing and precision. Tyler's arrogance, his lack of understanding, would give her the advantage. One day, he would learn that he had challenged the wrong person, but Emma's strategy ensured it would happen on her terms, not his. She sipped her tea, the city lights shimmering below, confident that the next phase of this office battle would reveal just how underestimated she had been. By the second day's end, Emma had made her point without striking a single blow. She had shown subtle dominance, mental acuity, and the kind of calm confidence that intimidated without aggression. Tyler might not have realized it yet, but she had begun rewriting the rules of engagement in the office. And as she closed her laptop and prepared for tomorrow, she allowed herself a quiet thought. This was only the beginning. Tyler and his friends had no idea who they were dealing with, and that ignorance would soon cost them, not physically, but in the recognition of the quiet, unyielding force standing in their midst. By midweek, the office had settled into a rhythm, but tension hummed beneath the surface. Emma had become a quiet enigma. Coworkers noticed her calm composure, the way she anticipated questions, and the subtle authority she carried without raising her voice. Tyler, however, was growing impatient. His casual mockery and whispered jokes had failed to provoke her. Each attempt only highlighted his own lack of control. To him, she was a puzzle, a challenge that bruised his ego daily, and he was determined to break her composure once and for all. During the weekly team meeting, Tyler tried a new tactic. As the manager discussed project deadlines, he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, and said loudly enough for half the room to hear, "Maybe Emma should handle the easy stuff. Filing paperwork, stapling reports, the boring stuff." Laughter rippled around the room, and a few colleagues smirked nervously. Emma's expression remained neutral. Her mind, however, was sharp and calculating. She listened carefully to the manager's words and Tyler's tone, noting subtle shifts in inflection, micro-expressions, and the reactions of surrounding coworkers. To anyone watching, it seemed as if she were merely listening politely. To Emma, it was reconnaissance. Years of Navy SEAL training had ingrained in her the skill of reading people in seconds, predicting reactions, anticipating aggression, and knowing when to strike decisively. Her response would be measured, precise, and unforgettable. When it was her turn to speak, Emma's voice was soft but carried an authority that silenced the room. "I handle challenges efficiently," she said, her gaze locking briefly with Tyler. There was no hostility, no anger, just calm certainty. The words hung in the air, and for the first time Tyler faltered. He had expected defensiveness, fear, or embarrassment. Instead, she exuded confidence. A ripple of murmurs passed through the room. Colleagues exchanged glances. Emma had subtly shifted the balance of power without raising her voice or engaging in confrontation. After the meeting, Tyler's frustration simmered. He tried another tactic in the break room, tossing a cup of coffee near Emma's feet, expecting a startled reaction. She bent down, picked it up, and placed it on the counter without breaking her composure. "Thank you for noticing," she said, her tone casual but unmistakably controlled. Tyler blinked, thrown off completely. Emma didn't scold him or shout. She simply demonstrated that she was unfazed, observing, cataloging, and ready. The silent dominance in her actions left him speechless, and for the first time, he realized he was no longer in control of the situation. Tyler's friends were equally baffled. They had anticipated Emma would flinch or respond with anger, but nothing happened. Emma's calm, precise movements conveyed an unspoken message. She was aware, prepared, and untouchable. One of them whispered, "Does she have a military background or something?" Tyler shot him a glare, irritated that his friends were acknowledging the truth before he was ready to accept it. But Emma didn't answer. She never needed to. Her presence alone communicated authority. By lunch, whispers had begun circulating among the other coworkers. Some admired Emma's restraint and poise, while others were curious about her past. Tyler sat with his group, fuming silently. He was growing desperate. Each failed attempt at provocation had only solidified Emma's quiet control over the office dynamics. He had underestimated her, and now his ego demanded correction. But Emma remained calm, patient, and perfectly aware of every movement, every expression, every subtle attempt to rattle her. Later that afternoon, another confrontation arose. Tyler blocked her path near the copier, leaning casually against it, a smug grin on his face. "Careful, newbie. You don't want to get lost in the office jungle," he said, expecting a startled or flustered response. Emma looked up at him, her eyes meeting his calmly. She shifted slightly, stepping past him with ease, her movements fluid and precise. "Thanks for the advice," she said, her tone polite but deliberate. Tyler's grin faltered. She had walked past him without confrontation, yet he felt completely disarmed. Emma's subtle actions left Tyler and his friends off balance. They realized slowly that this wasn't about aggression or anger. Emma's power lay in observation, patience, and precision, traits honed by years of elite Navy SEAL training. They had never encountered anyone who could neutralize their taunts with silence, poise, and unwavering calm. The more they tried, the less effective their attempts became. Emma had rewritten the rules of engagement, turning their bullying tactics into lessons in restraint and control. As the day wore on, Emma quietly continued her work, interacting politely but confidently with colleagues. She observed Tyler's shifting expressions, noting his growing frustration, the subtle panic that crept into his eyes whenever she maintained composure. Each observation was data, cataloged for later understanding. Emma wasn't just surviving these provocations. She was learning, planning, and preparing for a moment when subtle influence could assert itself fully. By the end of the day, whispers of Emma's composed, almost enigmatic behavior had spread throughout the office. Some coworkers approached her cautiously, curious about her background. "You handle yourself really well," one said. Emma smiled faintly. "Experience teaches patience," she replied, leaving the explanation deliberately vague. That single sentence hinted at depth and history without revealing too much. Tyler, meanwhile, left the office seething silently, frustrated by his inability to provoke her and humiliated by his friends. Quiet acknowledgement that she might be untouchable. As Emma drove home that evening, her mind replayed every interaction. She reflected on the provocations, the subtle battles, and her calm responses. Every word, every glance, and every movement had been deliberate. She understood office dynamics as another form of mission strategy: observation, assessment, patience, and precise action. Tyler had underestimated her, and that mistake would become increasingly costly. For Emma, this was not anger or revenge. It was measured strategy. By the time she arrived home, the sun was setting, casting long shadows over the quiet streets. Emma sipped her tea, thinking ahead to tomorrow. Tyler would continue his attempts to dominate, but she was ready. Her Navy SEAL training wasn't just about physical skill, it was mental discipline, situational awareness, and patience. She smiled faintly. The game had begun, and Tyler had no idea how thoroughly he had underestimated the quiet girl in his midst. The provocation had been a test, and Emma had passed with ease, setting the stage for the next phase of her subtle but absolute control. The next morning, tension hung in the air like fog. Emma walked into the office with her usual calm, measured pace, her eyes scanning every corner, noting exits, coworkers' moods, and the subtle body language of Tyler's group. They were waiting for her, leaning casually against desks, smirking with the overconfidence of men who believed they were untouchable. Today, Tyler seemed more agitated than usual. He had spent the previous evening stewing over his failures to provoke Emma and was determined to make an impact. Emma settled at her desk quietly, methodically organizing her workspace, her movements smooth and unhurried. Tyler sauntered over, leaning close to her, a cocky grin plastered across his face. "Hey, newbie," he said, voice dripping with mockery. "I think it's time you handled a real challenge starting with me." His friend snickered, confident that this time he would succeed in rattling her. But Emma didn't flinch. Her eyes met his calmly, unwavering, and she tilted her head slightly as if assessing his stance. Tyler shoved a stack of papers toward her, expecting her to react aggressively. "Careful, don't drop these," he sneered. Emma caught the papers effortlessly, setting them neatly back on the desk, her movements precise and unhurried. "Thanks for the reminder," she said softly, her tone even, but something in her posture, a taut readiness, a subtle coiled strength, made Tyler pause. For the first time, he felt an unfamiliar hesitation. He was facing someone whose calm was not weakness but controlled power. Frustrated, Tyler shoved again, this time more aggressively. Emma stepped aside effortlessly, letting him stumble forward slightly, then guided him back with a gentle but firm touch on his arm. She didn't push, pull, or yell. She simply used his momentum, redirecting it harmlessly. The office froze. Gasps rippled through the room. Coworkers had never seen such controlled strength. Tyler's friends went pale, realizing that Emma was far from ordinary. "Enough," Emma said, her voice quiet but commanding. "I won't escalate this, but you need to stop." Her gaze locked with Tyler's, sharp, unyielding. For a moment he froze, disoriented by the unexpected authority in her tone. He had expected anger, panic, or confusion, not this level of calm dominance. Tyler's arrogance wavered, replaced by something heavier, uncertainty. Emma had taken control of the situation without raising her voice, without striking a blow. Her training allowed her to assert authority with precision, making physical confrontation almost unnecessary. Tyler's friends looked around nervously. Some whispered to one another, "She's strong, not just strong trained." Their hushed awe betrayed what they had long suspected but didn't want to admit. Tyler, still recovering from his embarrassment, tried to regain control by raising his voice. "Watch it," he barked, attempting intimidation. But Emma's eyes remained locked on his, steady, unshaken. She didn't move hastily or react with fear. She had already anticipated every potential move he could make. Then Tyler lunged, not violently but with enough force to try to push her off balance. Emma reacted instinctively, shifting her stance in a controlled arc, using his momentum against him. His forward motion stopped abruptly, his energy dissipated into the air, and he stumbled back. Emma didn't touch him aggressively. She simply guided him to a stable position, demonstrating complete control over the encounter. Every coworker watching felt the room's temperature drop. The realization sank in. Tyler had misjudged her completely. She was trained, disciplined, and utterly precise. "Let's calm down," Emma said again, her voice gentle but firm. Her hands were relaxed at her sides, yet the subtle tension in her posture communicated readiness for any further challenge. Tyler's chest heaved. He looked around, noticing the silent judgment of the office. Colleagues who had witnessed the incident were now staring with a mix of awe and respect. Emma hadn't needed to strike him, but her presence alone was a demonstration of capability and control. Tyler's humiliation was immediate and profound. For the first time, he realized he had underestimated the quiet new girl. Emma had not only neutralized his aggression but had done so with elegance and precision. The office whispers grew louder. "Did you see that? She's like trained or something," one coworker murmured. Another added, "I think she's military." Emma said nothing, letting the impression settle, knowing the subtle revelation would have far greater impact than any boastful statement. Tyler backed off, rubbing his arm, his mind racing. He could not confront her further without looking foolish or risking actual harm, something his ego could not bear. Emma, meanwhile, returned to her desk calmly, adjusting papers and turning her computer on, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. To an untrained eye, it might have seemed like a minor hallway scuffle, but everyone who had watched knew otherwise. Emma had demonstrated mental and physical mastery. Her SEAL training allowed her to read the situation, neutralize threats, and maintain control without unnecessary force. By the afternoon, the story had spread. Coworkers approached Emma cautiously, some curious, some impressed, and some timid. "You handled that perfectly," one said quietly. Emma smiled faintly. "Experience teaches restraint," she replied, leaving her audience to wonder what exactly she had endured before this office. Her subtle confidence, combined with visible skill, began shifting the office dynamics. Tyler no longer felt dominance. Uncertainty replaced arrogance. Emma had shown, without exaggeration, that she was not a person to provoke lightly. As the day drew to a close, Emma packed her belongings with the same calm precision she had exhibited all day. Tyler and his group lingered nearby, quiet, subdued, and uncomfortably aware of their misjudgment. Emma glanced at them briefly, her gaze cool and unwavering. She didn't need to gloat or assert further. The demonstration had been sufficient. True power, she knew, was not in intimidation or retaliation, but in controlled response, precision, and authority, qualities that spoke louder than words or violence. Driving home that evening, Emma reflected on the confrontation. She replayed Tyler's aggression, her calculated responses, and the subtle lessons imparted to the office. She knew this was only the beginning. Tyler and his friends would continue testing boundaries, but now the stakes had shifted. She had established control, and every subsequent interaction would reinforce that fact. With patience, precision, and quiet strength, she would guide this environment toward order without unnecessary conflict. As the streetlights glimmered across her windshield, Emma allowed herself a faint smile. The first true confrontation had been handled flawlessly. Tyler had learned, silently and effectively, that she was not a person to underestimate. The office dynamics were changing. The quiet, reserved new girl had revealed herself, not through loud displays or violence, but through measured skill, discipline, and unwavering calm. And as Emma drove home, she knew that tomorrow the next challenge would arrive, but she was ready. Always ready. The day after the confrontation, the office was buzzing with whispers. Emma arrived calmly, coffee in hand, and noticed the subtle shift in energy. Tyler and his group avoided her gaze, sitting slightly apart, their overconfidence replaced with a quiet unease. Coworkers exchanged furtive glances, some smiling with a newfound respect for the quiet new employee. Emma didn't address the incident publicly. She didn't need to. Her actions had spoken louder than words ever could. The office now understood a simple truth. She was not someone to provoke. Emma settled at her desk, meticulously organizing her notes for the day's projects. She noticed the way colleagues now paused when speaking near her, their tone subtly more courteous, careful. One of the administrative assistants, previously shy and intimidated by office politics, quietly approached her desk. "Emma, I just wanted to say you handled that situation really well yesterday," she said, voice hesitant but sincere. Emma smiled faintly. "Thank you," she replied softly. Patience and awareness go a long way. She didn't elaborate, but the weight of her words carried authority, hinting at experience far beyond typical office life. Tyler lingered at the edge of the room, watching her with a mixture of embarrassment and simmering frustration. He couldn't shake the memory of the hallway confrontation. For weeks, he had prided himself on intimidating coworkers, and yet here was a woman who had neutralized him effortlessly. He spoke quietly to his friends, trying to rationalize his humiliation. "I don't get it, she's just a girl. How does she move like that?" One of his friends muttered. "She's trained. You can see it. She's disciplined like military or something." Tyler's eyes narrowed. He wasn't ready to admit it, but he was learning a hard truth. He had miscalculated badly. Emma's influence didn't stop with intimidation. Her calm, confident presence began subtly changing office culture. Meetings flowed more efficiently when she participated. Her observations, often understated, were precise, insightful, and constructive. Colleagues began to notice the way she approached challenges, calmly, analytically, and strategically. Even Tyler, while reluctant, had begun to pay attention, realizing that she possessed a level of focus and intelligence he had never encountered before. Emma's leadership wasn't forceful. It was quiet, pervasive, and effective. During lunch, a group of coworkers gathered near Emma's table, curious about her background. "Were you military?" one asked hesitantly. Emma smiled faintly, pausing before answering. "Something like that," she said. Her tone was neutral, but the subtle acknowledgement fueled curiosity. She didn't elaborate, allowing the mystique of her experience to grow. Word traveled quickly, and soon the entire office speculated about her past. Rumors circulated that Emma had undergone some kind of elite training, a theory that Tyler secretly loathed but couldn't deny based on the hallway incident. Tyler's frustration grew as he tried, unsuccessfully, to regain his dominance. Any attempt to provoke Emma was met with her calm observation or silent authority. He realized that traditional bullying tactics no longer worked. His friends noticed his growing insecurity, whispering among themselves. "She doesn't react like anyone else," one remarked. "It's unsettling." Tyler gritted his teeth, knowing he had been defeated in the first real test of wills. Emma hadn't struck him physically, yet she had won, through patience, discipline, and mental clarity. Emma continued her daily routine with serene precision, making it clear that she was not interested in confrontation for its own sake. Instead, she demonstrated competence, intelligence, and self-control, qualities that slowly earned admiration from coworkers. Tasks that had previously led to tension now proceeded smoothly when she was involved. Meetings ran efficiently, problems were solved more strategically, and even Tyler's team began listening when she spoke. Her presence had shifted the dynamics without a single show of aggression. By mid-afternoon, Emma noticed Tyler hovering near the conference room, attempting to monitor her interactions discreetly. She didn't confront him, but she subtly altered her approach, including him in conversation strategically, giving him enough attention to satisfy his ego while keeping control firmly in her hands. Tyler, confused by her strategy, tried to assert influence but found his efforts countered by her calm, steady guidance. For the first time, he realized that influence wasn't about loud confrontation. It was about strategy, awareness, and controlled authority. At the end of the day, Emma prepared to leave, noticing the difference in office energy. Colleagues approached her quietly, expressing admiration or curiosity, and even Tyler lingered, unsure whether to confront her again or retreat. Emma gave polite, brief responses, maintaining her composed demeanor. The subtle shift was undeniable. She had transformed how people perceived her. Fear and respect replaced mockery, and her reputation as someone both formidable and disciplined was firmly established. Driving home, Emma reflected on the day. Her interventions had been measured, precise, and nonviolent. She had maintained her calm authority while gradually reshaping the office culture. Tyler had been neutralized, not through physical power, but through intelligence, restraint, and strategy. Her Navy SEAL training applied to an entirely different battlefield. She smiled faintly, knowing that her presence was already teaching lessons about discipline, observation, and respect, and that tomorrow would further reinforce the balance she had begun to establish. By the time she arrived home, the sun had set, painting the streets in a warm amber glow. Emma allowed herself a moment to relax, savoring the sense of control she had created. She knew Tyler and his group would continue testing boundaries, but she also knew that the office now saw her differently. She was no longer just the quiet new girl. She was a force to be respected, a presence that commanded attention, and a subtle reminder that appearances could be deceiving. The lessons had begun. And so Emma Carter closed her laptop, reflecting on the subtle victories of the day. No words needed to be shouted, no fists needed to be thrown. She had asserted her authority, established respect, and reshaped the office dynamic, all through calm observation, disciplined action, and quiet intelligence. Tyler's ego had been bruised, and the office now understood an undeniable truth. Emma was not to be underestimated. Patience, strategy, and precision were her weapons, and she wielded them flawlessly, one measured step at a time. By the start of the following week, the office atmosphere had shifted significantly. Emma's presence had become more than just a silent warning to Tyler and his friends. It was a quiet force reshaping daily interactions. Colleagues who had previously whispered about her behind her back now approached her with genuine curiosity and respect. Emma carried herself with the same calm, deliberate composure she had maintained since her first day, but her focus had expanded beyond self-preservation. She was beginning to influence others, teaching lessons without words, demonstrating leadership through action rather than authority alone. During the morning team meeting, a complex project was discussed that had previously caused confusion and delays. Emma listened attentively, eyes scanning documents, noting subtle inconsistencies, and observing coworkers' reactions. When it was her turn to speak, she calmly and clearly outlined a step-by-step approach to streamline the workflow. She didn't speak to dominate. She spoke to clarify, to guide, and to support. Colleagues nodded, impressed by her insight. Tyler, sitting nearby, felt a pang of envy. He had spent years thinking he understood authority, yet here was someone demonstrating it effortlessly, calmly, and effectively. Over lunch, a small group of employees gathered around Emma's table, seeking advice on how to handle difficult tasks or tricky interpersonal dynamics. "How do you stay so calm, even when things get chaotic?" one asked. Emma smiled faintly. "Focus on what you can control," she replied. "Observe first, react second. Patience is always more powerful than haste." Her words were simple yet profound. People listened intently, realizing that Emma's calm exterior masked not passivity but intense mental discipline, a quality rare in any environment. Tyler watched from across the cafeteria, attempting to maintain his composure, though he could no longer deny the impact Emma had on the team. Her influence was undeniable. Employees were seeking her guidance, sharing her suggestions, and subtly deferring to her judgment. His previous tactics, mockery, aggression, and casual intimidation, no longer carried weight. Emma's quiet authority had shifted the balance of power, and Tyler was forced to recognize that her capabilities extended far beyond physical skill. He had underestimated the scope of her leadership. In the afternoons, Emma began taking initiative in team projects, subtly mentoring coworkers. She encouraged collaboration, helping quieter employees find their voice and guiding them to contribute meaningfully. Her leadership style was not about commanding or dominating. It was about empowering others while maintaining control of the overall workflow. Colleagues quickly learned that following her guidance meant efficiency, clarity, and minimized conflict. Emma's ability to lead without force created a culture of trust and respect, leaving a lasting impression on those around her. One day, during a tense project review, Tyler's group made a critical mistake. Instead of publicly berating them, Emma approached the situation calmly. She explained the error, outlined the correct process, and demonstrated the solution step by step. The group, initially defensive, softened under her patient, strategic approach. They began to recognize her authority not as threatening but as a resource. Tyler, meanwhile, sat in stunned silence, realizing that her influence extended far beyond confrontation. She taught, guided, and corrected without diminishing others. His resentment mixed with reluctant admiration. By midweek, Emma had earned a reputation as the unofficial mentor of the office. Colleagues sought her advice not just on workflow, but on problem-solving, communication, and even conflict resolution. She remained approachable yet commanding, her experience and intelligence evident in every interaction. Tyler, for the first time, approached her directly, not with mockery, but with a question about a complex task. Emma responded with the same calm precision she applied to every situation. Tyler felt an unfamiliar respect building. He realized that her authority was genuine, rooted in skill, discipline, and intelligence. Emma's subtle mentorship extended beyond individual guidance. She began to influence team culture, promoting collaboration, respect, and accountability. She recognized that leadership wasn't about fear, it was about trust and consistency. Employees who had once ignored her advice now sought it eagerly, learning to value patience, observation, and calculated action. Tyler, despite his pride, began to mirror some of her behaviors, pausing before reacting and considering others' perspectives. He couldn't yet admit how much he had learned, but the changes were undeniable. By the end of the week, the transformation was evident. The office ran more smoothly, projects were executed with greater precision, and conflict decreased. Emma's quiet guidance had established a new standard for professionalism and strategic thinking. Tyler and his friends, once arrogant and dismissive, were now attentive, cautious, and occasionally deferential. The once hostile environment had been subtly restructured, not through confrontation or aggression, but through Emma's unwavering discipline, calm authority, and strategic mentorship. As Emma drove home that evening, she reflected on the week's progress. Her strategy had worked perfectly. By maintaining composure, observing behavior, and subtly asserting authority, she had reshaped the office dynamic without overt confrontation. Tyler had begun to respect her genuinely, and the team as a whole had become more efficient, cooperative, and attentive. She allowed herself a small smile. Her approach demonstrated that true leadership and influence came from mastery of oneself, awareness of others, and the patience to act at the right time. That night, Emma reviewed her notes and planned for the next week. She knew Tyler might continue to test boundaries, and she anticipated subtle challenges from others. But she also recognized that her influence had grown beyond immediate confrontation. She had established herself as a guiding force, a mentor, and a figure of authority whose calm confidence inspired respect. The office had been transformed, and the subtle lessons she imparted, discipline, observation, patience, and strategic thinking, would remain long after any confrontation ended. Emma's past as a Navy SEAL remained her private foundation. She didn't flaunt it, but every action, every decision, and every interaction carried the discipline and strategic thinking honed over years of elite training. Her presence alone had shifted the power dynamics in the office, establishing her as a figure of quiet authority. Tyler had learned the first hard lesson. Brute force and arrogance were no match for experience, intelligence, and calm resolve. The real transformation was just beginning, and Emma's influence would continue to grow with every calculated, patient step. As she closed her laptop and prepared for bed, Emma allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. She had not only defended herself but had begun to teach, guide, and influence the office culture. Her subtle authority was reshaping relationships, productivity, and respect. She had proven that power wasn't about aggression. It was about control, discipline, and the quiet confidence to act with precision. Tomorrow the lessons would continue, and Emma would remain the calm, strategic force in the office, a presence that no one would underestimate again. By the start of the following week, the office had settled into a new rhythm, one guided quietly but unmistakably by Emma Carter. Her calm composure, tactical thinking, and strategic guidance had earned her respect across the team, and even Tyler had begun to accept her authority, though begrudgingly. Yet whispers about her background persisted. Some coworkers had noticed her precision, her disciplined posture, and her ability to remain composed under stress. The office had become fascinated with the quiet girl who had transformed a formerly chaotic environment into a model of efficiency and respect. The tipping point came unexpectedly. A small fire alarm had gone off in the building mid-afternoon, triggering a chaotic scramble. Employees were unsure of where to go, panic flickering in their eyes. Tyler and his friends froze near the elevators, unsure whether to act, whether to help, or simply to follow the crowd. Emma, calm as ever, immediately assessed the situation. Her eyes scanned exits, potential hazards, and the location of each employee. She guided everyone systematically, directing them away from danger, ensuring no one was left behind or panicked. Her confidence and clear instructions drew attention. Colleagues moved swiftly, following her guidance. "This way, stay calm," she called, her voice carrying over the noise. Tyler, trying to keep up, noticed how effortlessly she coordinated the group. Her movements were fluid, her decisions precise. She even assisted a coworker who had tripped, helping them regain balance while still maintaining control over the evacuation. At that moment, it became obvious to everyone present. Emma's skills were far beyond ordinary. After the evacuation, the team gathered outside, waiting for the all-clear. A colleague, clearly impressed, whispered, "She handled that perfectly, like she's trained for this." Emma smiled faintly, brushing off the comment with understated humility. "Experience teaches preparation," she replied. The words were simple, but their weight was undeniable. Tyler, standing off to the side, felt a pang of disbelief and admiration. Everything he had witnessed over the past weeks, the confrontations, her calm authority, her strategic guidance, now coalesced into a shocking realization. Emma was far more capable than anyone had imagined. As the fire drill ended and the team returned to the office, curiosity mounted. Colleagues approached Emma cautiously, some directly, others tentatively. "Emma, may I ask?" one began, hesitating. "Were you in the military?" Emma regarded them silently for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, Navy SEAL," she confirmed, her voice calm but firm. The room went still, the words echoing in the minds of everyone present. Murmurs spread like wildfire. A Navy SEAL, the quiet, composed girl they had underestimated, had been in their midst all along. Tyler's jaw tightened, and he ran a hand over his face, trying to process the revelation. Everything made sense now. Her ability to neutralize him without aggression, her precise decision-making, and the confidence that had unsettled him from day one. He had assumed she was timid, untrained, and inexperienced. Instead, he faced a woman whose life had been defined by discipline, endurance, and elite training. The realization humbled him. He finally understood why he had failed to provoke her, and why the office had so easily followed her guidance. Emma didn't dwell on the revelation. She remained composed, allowing her presence to communicate the lessons without elaboration. Her Navy SEAL background wasn't a boast, it was context, the foundation of the discipline, strategic thinking, and calm authority she had applied in the office. Coworkers listened with awe as snippets of her past emerged through casual conversation. Missions requiring patience and precision, training under extreme pressure, and the ability to maintain focus when stakes were highest. Each story reinforced the respect she had already earned. Tyler, meanwhile, wrestled with his pride. He had underestimated Emma from the start, attempting to dominate and humiliate her. Now he realized he had been outmatched, not in arrogance or brute force, but in intelligence, patience, and skill. He approached her cautiously, choosing his words carefully. "Emma, I didn't realize. I misjudged you," he said, voice low. She regarded him calmly, her expression neutral but firm. "It happens," she replied. "What matters is how you move forward." Those words, simple yet commanding, resonated deeply. Tyler felt a newfound respect taking root, one built on recognition, humility, and understanding. Over the following days, Emma's role in the office continued to solidify. Coworkers sought her guidance more openly, and even Tyler began deferring to her judgment in complex matters. Her mentorship extended beyond project management. She taught patience, strategy, and leadership, often through example rather than instruction. Her influence transformed the office culture entirely. Disputes that might have escalated were resolved calmly. Tasks that previously caused confusion now flowed efficiently. Teamwork improved dramatically. Emma's Navy SEAL training had provided her the tools to lead subtly yet decisively. Tyler, once arrogant and dismissive, now approached Emma with genuine curiosity and respect. He asked questions about her strategies, seeking insight into how she remained so calm under pressure. She answered thoughtfully, without condescension, demonstrating that real strength lay in control, observation, and discipline. Over time, his admiration grew, and he began to emulate her methods in small ways, pausing before reacting, assessing situations more carefully, and considering the perspectives of colleagues. Emma's lessons were tangible and transformative. By the end of the week, the office was unrecognizable. The formerly chaotic environment had become efficient, collaborative, and disciplined. Colleagues no longer whispered about Emma as a mysterious newcomer. They respected her as a leader, a mentor, and a source of guidance. Tyler had moved from challenger to follower, humbled but determined to learn. Even the most skeptical employees acknowledged her skills, recognizing the rare combination of intelligence, discipline, and composure she brought to every situation. Driving home that evening, Emma reflected on the past few weeks. Her presence had not only neutralized hostility but had reshaped the office culture entirely. Her authority was no longer questioned. It was respected and accepted. Tyler's transformation, subtle but genuine, was a testament to her ability to teach through action, influence through discipline, and lead without overt force. The office had learned the lesson she had quietly imparted from day one. Underestimate her at your own risk, and respect her because strength comes in many forms. Emma allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Her strategy had worked perfectly. The revelation of her Navy SEAL background had reinforced the lessons she had already demonstrated: calm authority, disciplined focus, strategic thinking, and patient leadership. She had neutralized threats, earned respect, and reshaped an environment that initially seemed hostile. As she turned off her lights and prepared for the week ahead, Emma knew that the balance of power had shifted permanently. She had earned her place, not through aggression or force, but through intelligence, skill, and unwavering composure. The quiet, unassuming woman they had all underestimated had revealed herself fully, not as a boastful figure, but as a mentor, a leader, and a symbol of disciplined authority. Tyler and the rest of the office finally understood what she had been from the beginning: a Navy SEAL in mind, body, and spirit, capable of transforming chaos into order and commanding respect without ever raising her voice. And with that realization, Emma's influence became undeniable, cementing her place as a guiding force in the office. By the following week, Emma's presence had become the cornerstone of the office. Tyler, once brash and dismissive, now approached her with cautious respect, seeking guidance rather than confrontation. Her influence was no longer questioned. It was accepted. Coworkers moved through the office with newfound confidence, inspired by her calm authority and strategic mindset. Tasks were completed efficiently, disputes were resolved before escalating, and the office operated with a sense of cohesion that had previously seemed impossible. Emma had not only defended herself, she had reshaped an entire environment. The subtle transformation wasn't just in workflows, it was in morale. Employees who had been fearful or hesitant now spoke up, contributing ideas with assurance. Emma encouraged this growth, praising initiative, offering guidance, and gently steering efforts where needed. Her leadership was quiet but effective. She didn't seek attention or acclaim. Instead, she demonstrated competence, patience, and fairness at every turn. The office culture had shifted from competition and intimidation to collaboration and respect, all under her subtle but unwavering guidance. One afternoon, Tyler approached her desk with a stack of reports in hand. "Emma, I've realized something," he said, voice low and sincere. "You're not just good at this, you're exceptional. I was wrong to challenge you." He paused, his eyes reflecting genuine humility. Emma looked up, calm as always. "It's not about being right or wrong," she replied evenly. "It's about learning, adapting, and knowing when to act." Tyler nodded slowly, absorbing her words. For the first time, he recognized the depth of her skill and discipline, understanding that leadership was not about ego. It was about measured action and integrity. The day ended with a team debrief, and Emma's contributions were acknowledged by everyone. Colleagues expressed appreciation for her guidance, noting how much smoother the week had gone under her influence. Tyler, sitting quietly, added, "We've all learned a lot from Emma, not just about work but about how to handle pressure, strategy, and respect." The room fell silent for a moment, then erupted in nods of agreement. Emma remained composed, offering a small, understated smile. She didn't need to say more. The message was clear. She had earned their respect not through intimidation, but through consistent action, discipline, and leadership. Later, Emma reflected on the journey. The office that had initially tested her, challenged her, and underestimated her was now transformed. Tyler had shifted from a rival to an ally, his growth a testament to her patient, strategic approach. The once hostile environment had become a place of respect, collaboration, and efficiency. Her lessons, calm authority, strategic observation, and disciplined action, were now embedded in the office culture. The transformation was lasting, built not on fear, but on understanding and admiration. Emma's Navy SEAL background had remained largely undisclosed until the right moment. It wasn't necessary to flaunt her achievements. Her actions spoke louder than words ever could. The office now understood why she moved with precision, why she remained calm under pressure, and why she had been able to neutralize challenges without aggression. The revelation of her past only reinforced what they had already observed. Emma's skill, intelligence, and discipline were unparalleled, and her leadership had reshaped an entire team. Tyler, who had once been the source of tension and arrogance, now approached Emma with questions about handling challenging situations, communication, and teamwork. He sought mentorship rather than confrontation, a complete reversal from his earlier behavior. Emma guided him patiently, teaching through example and subtle advice. His transformation reflected the core of her influence. Respect, discipline, and strategic thinking could change not only office dynamics, but individuals themselves. The office environment had evolved into one of cohesion and collaboration. Employees worked together efficiently, problems were resolved calmly, and the culture of fear and intimidation had vanished. Emma's presence had left a lasting imprint. Her calm authority, strategic mind, and disciplined approach had become a model for everyone. Her colleagues no longer saw her as a quiet newcomer. They saw her as a leader, mentor, and guide. Respect for her was universal, and the lessons she imparted were permanent. As the workday ended, Emma packed her things and walked toward the door. She glanced at Tyler, who nodded in acknowledgement, a silent understanding between mentor and former challenger. Colleagues watched, inspired by her poise, aware that they were witnessing someone extraordinary. Emma didn't boast, and she didn't need to. Her actions, discipline, and calm presence had already spoken volumes. She had won respect, transformed her environment, and demonstrated the power of patient, strategic leadership. Driving home that evening, Emma allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Her mission in the office had been accomplished. She had neutralized threats, established authority, and taught lessons in patience, discipline, and strategy. Tyler and the team had learned to respect her not out of fear, but because of her consistent actions, intelligence, and unwavering composure. The transformation was complete. Emma knew that her influence would last long after she left the office. She had instilled a culture of respect, collaboration, and strategic thinking. Her presence had shown that true strength wasn't about intimidation or aggression. It was about observation, patience, discipline, and precise action. Tyler's acknowledgement, her colleagues' admiration, and the newfound efficiency of the office were proof of her lasting impact. As she pulled into her driveway, Emma smiled softly. The quiet girl they had underestimated had revealed herself not just as a Navy SEAL, but as a leader, mentor, and force of disciplined authority. Tyler and the office had learned the ultimate lesson: underestimate her and you fail, respect her and you thrive. The legacy of Emma Carter, a woman of calm, strategic power, and quiet mastery, was firmly established, leaving an indelible mark on everyone she encountered. The story had reached its conclusion. Challenges had been met, authority had been earned, and respect had been secured. Emma's discipline, strategy, and patience had turned potential hostility into admiration, fear into learning, and an ordinary office into a model of efficiency and respect. And as she stepped inside her home, she knew that the lessons she imparted, the respect she commanded, and the subtle strength she wielded would endure far beyond the walls of the office, leaving a lasting legacy that no one could forget.